Taiho leaned against the cold metal railing of Docking Bay 7 and watched the ships come in. He had been doing this for 3 weeks now, ever since he arrived at Harmony Station. Other humans told him the excitement would fade. They said he would get used to seeing alien vessels float through the void like strange metal fish. But Taiho never got bored. He watched every single landing with the same curious eyes. Today, a Kith transport was approaching. The ship was long and thin, like a needle made of black glass. It moved slowly toward the docking port. Very slowly. Taiho frowned and checked his watch. The ship had been approaching for almost 15 minutes now. The docking port was only 2 kilometers away. He looked to his left. A Mora cargo vessel was also coming in. It moved in a wide, lazy curve, circling around invisible obstacles that did not exist. Its path made no sense. There was nothing in the way. Empty space stretched in every direction. But the Mora ship acted like it was flying through a field of rocks. Taiho scratched his head. He had noticed this pattern before. Every alien ship, no matter the species, flew the same way. Slow, careful, indirect. They took long paths when short ones were available. They approached at speeds that a bicycle could match. They avoided open space like it was filled with danger. At first, Taiho thought maybe there were rules he did not understand. Space traffic laws. Safety protocols. Invisible hazards that human sensors could not detect. But after 3 weeks of watching, he was certain. There was no logical reason for it. The aliens simply chose to fly this way, and it drove him crazy. The Kith transport finally docked. The pilot, a tall insectoid creature named Vel, stepped off the boarding ramp. His forearms folded neatly behind his back. His compound eyes reflected the station lights like shattered mirrors. Taiho had spoken to Vel a few times before. The Kith was a senior navigator on the station. He was stiff and formal, but not unfriendly. Taiho decided to take a chance. "Hey, Vel," he called out. Vel turned. His mandibles clicked softly. "Human Taiho, good cycle to you." "Good cycle," Taiho replied. He walked over and gestured toward the viewport. "I was watching your landing." "Nice ship, thank you." "The vessel performs adequately." Taiho hesitated. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind for weeks. "Why did you fly so slow?" Vel's body went stiff. His compound eyes seemed to darken. "I do not understand the question." "Your approach," Taiho said. "You took 15 minutes to cover 2 kilometers. Your ship is capable of much faster speeds. And your path was indirect. You curved around empty space. Why?" Vel did not answer. His mandibles stopped clicking. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Taiho noticed something strange. Other aliens nearby had stopped moving. A group of Mara traders froze mid-conversation. A small Velk maintenance worker dropped its tools and stared. Everyone was looking at Taiho. "Did I say something wrong?" Taiho asked. Vel finally spoke. His voice was flat. "Human Taiho, I have duties to attend. Good cycle, Tio." He turned and walked away quickly. His forelegs clicked against the metal floor in a hurried rhythm. Taiho stood alone in the docking bay. The other aliens slowly returned to their tasks, but none of them looked at him. He felt like he had broken some invisible rule. But he had no idea what it was. 2 hours later, Taiho received a message on his personal device. It was from Yuna, the human diplomat assigned to Harmony Station. The message was short. "My office. Now." Yuna's office was small and cluttered with datapads and translation devices. She was a woman in her early 30s, with sharp eyes and a tired expression. When Taiho entered, she did not offer him a seat.
"What did you do?"
she asked. "I asked Vel why aliens fly so slow." Yuna closed her eyes. She pressed her fingers to her temples like she was fighting a headache. "Of course you did." "What?" "It was just a question." "No, Taiho, it was not just a question." Una opened her eyes and looked at him. "You asked about the first restriction." "The what?" "The first restriction. It is one of the founding laws of the Galactic Union. Every species knows about it. No one talks about it, ever." Taiho blinked. "A law about flying slow?" A law about how all species must fly. The patterns, the speeds, the approach vectors. Everything is standardized. Everything is controlled. And no one is allowed to ask why. Taiho laughed. He could not help it. That is ridiculous. Why would anyone make a law like that? Yuna did not laugh. I do not know. And neither does anyone else. The first restriction has existed since before the Galactic Union was formed. It is older than most species' recorded history. All we know is that breaking it, or even questioning it, is considered deeply offensive. Taiho's laughter faded. So I committed some kind of crime by asking? Not a crime. But you made a lot of people uncomfortable. Vel filed a formal complaint. He said you were being aggressive and disruptive. Aggressive? I just asked a question. To them that is aggressive, Yuna sighed. Taiho, I know you are curious. I know you want to understand everything. But some things are not meant to be understood. Some things are just accepted. That is how the galaxy works. Taiho did not respond. He stared at the floor, his mind racing. A law that no one could explain. A rule that no one could question. It made no sense. And the more Yuna told him to let it go, the more he wanted to dig deeper. That night, Taiho sat alone in his quarters. He pulled up the station's public archives on his terminal. Flight records, docking logs, navigation data. He scrolled through thousands of entries, looking for anything unusual. Then he found it, buried in the oldest files. It's almost forgotten were recordings from ancient ships. Vessels that predated the Galactic Union by thousands of years. Taiho played one of the recordings. His eyes went wide. The ancient ship flew nothing like the modern ones. It moved fast, direct, aggressive. It cut through space like a blade, taking the shortest path with no hesitation. It dodged obstacles at the last second, reacting with impossible speed. It was beautiful, terrifying. Alive, Taiho leaned back in his chair. Something had changed. Long ago, aliens flew differently. They flew the way humans flew now. So what happened? What made them stop? Taiho knew he should let it go. He knew Yuna was right. But as he stared at the frozen image of that ancient ship, he made a decision. He was going to find out the truth, no matter what it cost. He did not know it yet. But that decision would change everything. Taiho spent the next 3 days searching the archives. He read through thousands of old files. He watched hundreds of flight recordings. And the more he learned, the more confused he became. The ancient ships all flew the same way. Fast, bold, dangerous. But at some point in history, everything changed. The records showed a gap. A period of almost 200 years where nothing was recorded. And when the records started again, every species flew differently. Slow, careful, afraid. Something happened during those missing years. Something terrible. But the archives contained no answers. It was like someone had erased an entire chapter of galactic history. Taiho needed help. He needed someone who knew more than what the public archives contained. He thought of Vel, but the Kith had avoided him since their last conversation. He thought of other aliens he had met, but none of them would even look at him anymore. Then he remembered Orin. Orin was a Mora scholar who worked in the station's cultural exchange department. Taiho had met him during his first week on the station. Unlike most aliens, Orin seemed genuinely interested in humans. He asked questions about Earth. He wanted to know about human art and music and history. And most importantly, he was not afraid of Taiho's curiosity. Taiho sent Orin a private message. I need to talk. Somewhere private. It is about the first restriction. Response came quickly. Storage Bay 14. 1 hour. Come alone. Storage Bay 14 was a forgotten corner of the station. Dusty containers filled the space, stacked high like metal mountains. The lights were dim. The air smelled old. Taiho found Orin waiting in a narrow gap between two containers. Orin was a Mara, which meant he looked like a combination of a fish and a human. His skin was pale blue and covered in tiny scales. His eyes were large and dark, like deep water, Thin gills fluttered on the sides of his neck. He spoke softly, almost in a whisper. You should not be asking these questions, Taiho. I know, but I cannot stop. Something is wrong. Something does not make sense. Orin made a sound that might have been a sigh. You humans, you are always like this. Always digging. Always pushing. Will you help me or not? Orin looked around, checking for anyone who might be listening. Then he nodded slowly. I will tell you what I know. But you must promise me something. When you learn the truth, you must be careful. The truth is dangerous. It has destroyed species before. Taiho swallowed hard. I promise. Orin began to speak. His voice was low and heavy, like he was carrying a great weight. Thousands of years ago, before the Galactic Union existed, the galaxy was different. Species fought each other constantly. Wars were common. Borders shifted like sand. There was no peace. There was only survival. Taiho nodded. He had learned some of this from the public histories. The age of conflict. I read about it. What you read was incomplete, Orin said. The public histories leave out the most important part. During the age of conflict, there was one species that was different from all the others. They were not the strongest. They were not the most advanced, but they were the most terrifying. Why? Because of how they fought. Orin's gills fluttered nervously. Every other species fought wars the same way. Careful, strategic, calculated. They planned battles months in advance. They moved ships in organized formations. They minimized risk at every opportunity. That sounds smart. It was until that species appeared. Orin's dark eyes seemed to grow darker. They did not fight like anyone else. They were chaotic, unpredictable. They flew their ships like they had no fear of death. They attacked from impossible angles. They made decisions in seconds that should have taken hours. They adapted to any situation. They learned from every defeat. And they never, ever stopped. Taiho felt a chill run down his spine. They sound dangerous. They were more than dangerous. They were extinction. In less than 50 years, they conquered a third of the known galaxy. Species that had existed for millions of years were wiped out. Entire civilizations fell. The galaxy was drowning in fire. Orin paused. He seemed to be struggling with the next part. What happened to them? Taiho asked. The remaining species formed an alliance. It was the first time so many different races had worked together. They combined their fleets, their technologies, their strategies, and they fought back. Did they win? Barely. Orin's voice was barely a whisper now. The war lasted for 150 years. Trillions died. Entire star systems were destroyed. In the end, the Alliance managed to push that species back to their home system. They surrounded them, trapped them, and then, the records do not say. The Alliance erased everything. Every record, every name, every image. They wanted the galaxy to forget that species ever existed. They believed that even the memory of them was dangerous. Taiho's mind was racing, but they could not have killed all of them. A whole species does not just disappear. Orin looked at Taiho for a long moment. His dark eyes were filled with something that might have been pity or fear. No, he said softly. They did not kill them. They contained them, quarantined their home system, blocked all communication, erased all records, and then they waited. They hoped that without contact, without memory of what they were, that species would change, evolve, become something less dangerous. Taiho felt his heart beating faster. And did it work? We do not know. Orin took a step closer. That species was isolated for thousands of years, alone, forgotten. They had to rebuild everything from nothing. Their technology, their culture, their identity. They forgot who they were. They forgot what they had done. They gave themselves a new name. They thought they were starting fresh. Taiho's mouth was dry. What name? Orin's gills stopped moving. His voice was almost silent. Humans. The word hit Taiho like a physical blow. He took a step back. His legs felt weak. It's impossible. We only developed space travel a few hundred years ago. We only joined the Galactic Union recently. We are new to all of this. You are not new. Oren shook his head slowly. You are very, very old. And the galaxy has been watching you, waiting, terrified of the day you would return to space. Taiho's hands were shaking. But we are not like that anymore. We are peaceful. We joined the Union. We follow the rules. Oren reached into his robe and pulled out a small data chip. He pressed it into Taiho's hand. Watch this. Then tell me you are different. Taiho returned to his quarters in a daze. He inserted the data chip into his terminal. A video began to play. It showed Taiho himself, landing his shuttle on the station during his first day. The video had been recorded by station security cameras. Taiho watched himself fly. He saw the sharp turns, the direct approach, the aggressive speed, the split-second adjustments. He had thought he was flying normally, casually, the way any human pilot would fly. Then the video split. On one side was Taiho's landing. On the other side was one of the ancient recordings he had found, a ship from the Forgotten War. The species that had nearly destroyed the galaxy. The flying was identical. Taiho sat in the darkness of his room for a very long time. He did not know what to think. He did not know what to feel. He only knew that everything had changed. 3 days passed. Taiho did not leave his quarters. He did not eat. He barely slept. He watched the video again and again. His landing, the ancient ship. Side by side, the same movements, the same instincts, the same aggression. He wanted to believe it was a coincidence. He wanted to believe that Oren was wrong. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He had always known. Humans were different. Humans flew differently. Humans fought differently. He had just never asked why. On the 4th day, a message arrived. It was not from Yuna. It was from the Galactic Council itself. The message was short and cold. Human Taiho. Human Yuna. Your presence is required in the council chambers immediately. Taiho found Yuna waiting for him outside the chambers. Her face was pale. She looked like she had not slept either. What did you do? She whispered, I asked questions. And now we are both paying for it. She grabbed his arm. Whatever happens in there, do not argue. Do not challenge them. Just listen and agree. And if I cannot agree, Yuna's grip tightened. Then we might not leave this station alive. The council chambers were massive. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above. The floor was made of polished black stone that reflected the dim lights like still water. At the far end of the chamber, on a raised platform, sat the council. There were 12 species represented, 12 leaders from 12 worlds. They sat in a curved row, looking down at Taiho and Yuna like judges watching criminals. At the center of the row, larger than all the others, was Grand Arbiter Kess. Kess was a Thrall. His species looked like giant slugs. If slugs were made of metal and shadow, his body was thick and covered in overlapping plates. His eyes were small and black, almost lost in the folds of his face. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder rolling across mountains. Human Taiho, you have asked forbidden questions. You have sought forbidden knowledge. Do you deny this? Taiho looked at Yuna. She shook her head slightly. He took a deep breath. I do not deny it. The council members shifted. Whispers passed between them. Kess raised one of his thick arms, and the chamber fell silent. Then you know what you are. You know what your species was? I know what Oren told me. I know what the recordings show. But I do not understand. What is there to understand? Kess's voice was cold. Your ancestors burned the galaxy. They killed trillions. They destroyed civilizations that had existed for millions of years. They were a plague, a disease. And we were forced to make a choice. You chose to erase them, to trap them, to hope they would change. Yes, Kess leaned forward. His small eyes seemed to bore into Taiho's skull. And for thousands of years, we believed it worked. Your species forgot. You rebuilt. You became something new. When you finally returned to space, You seemed peaceful, curious, harmless. We voted to accept you into the Union. We hoped our fears were wrong. Una spoke for the first time. Her voice was tight but controlled. And were they? Were your fears wrong? Kes did not answer immediately. He turned to look at something on a screen beside him. Taiho recognized it. It was the video of his landing, his flight, his instincts. We placed restrictions on human pilots, Kes said. We limited your ship access. We kept you away from military vessels. We wanted to see if you had truly changed. Taiho was one of the first humans allowed to fly freely. A test, and I failed, Taiho said quietly. No, you succeeded. That is the problem. Kes's voice was heavy. You fly exactly as your ancestors did. Direct, aggressive, adaptive. You do not even know you are doing it. It is instinct. It is nature. It is in your blood. The chamber was silent. Taiho felt the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing down on him. So what happens now? He asked. Another council member spoke. She was a kith, tall and sharp like Vel. Her voice was like breaking glass. The council will vote. We must decide what to do with humanity. Some believe you should be expelled from the Union. Return to your home system. Contained again, and others. Una asked. Others believe expulsion is not enough. The kith's compound eyes glittered. They believe the only safe choice is elimination. Taiho's blood ran cold. You want to kill us? All of us? Because of how we fly? Because of what you are? The kith's voice rose. You cannot change your nature. You cannot evolve past your instincts. Your ancestors proved that. They tried to live peacefully at first. They said they wanted cooperation, trade, friendship, but the moment they felt threatened, they reverted. They attacked. They conquered. They destroyed. We are not our ancestors. You are exactly your ancestors. The kith slammed her arm against her seat. The same species, the same blood, the same instincts. Do you think we are fools? Do you think we do not see the danger? Cass raised his arm again. The kith fell silent, but her hatred still burned in her eyes. The council will vote in 3 cycles, Cass said. Until then, all humans on this station will remain confined to their quarters. Any attempt to leave will be met with force. Una stepped forward. Grand Arbiter, please. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. We are not asking you to trust us. We are asking you to test us. Give us a chance to show that humanity has changed. Kes studied her for a long moment. Then he looked at Taiho, the human who started this. The one who could not stop asking questions. Do you have something to say? Taiho's mind was spinning. He thought of everything he had learned. The ancient war. The erased history. The fear that had shaped the entire galaxy for thousands of years. He thought of his parents back on Earth, his friends, everyone he had ever known. All of them condemned because of something their ancestors did long before they were born. It was not fair. It was not right. But fairness did not matter here. Only survival. I want a chance, Taiho said. One chance to show you who we really are? Not who we were. Not what you fear we might become. But who we are right now, today. Kes was silent for a long time. The other council members whispered among themselves. Finally, Kes spoke. One chance. You will have one chance. But if you fail, human, there will be no second opportunity. Your species will face the consequences. He waved his arm, and guards appeared at the edges of the chamber. Take them to their quarters. The test will be decided by the council. You will be informed. As the guards led them away, Una grabbed Taiho's hand. Her fingers were cold. What did you just do? She whispered. I do not know, he admitted, but I had to try. That night, Taiho sat alone in his quarters. The weight of the galaxy pressed down on him. Billions of human lives depended on whatever test the council would create, and he had no idea if he could pass it. But he knew one thing. He would not change who he was. He would not pretend to be something he was not. If humanity was going to survive, it would survive as humans. aggressive, adaptive, alive. He just had to show the galaxy that those qualities were not a threat, they were a gift. The news spread quickly among the humans on Harmony Station. There were only 47 of them. Diplomats, scientists, engineers, pilots, all of them, come to the station believing they were ambassadors for their species. Now they learned they were prisoners, hostages waiting for judgment. Una called an emergency meeting in the common room of the human quarters. The space was small and crowded. People stood against walls. They sat on tables. They filled every available corner. Their faces showed fear, anger, confusion. Tejo stood at the front of the room. Una stood beside him. She had dark circles under her eyes. She had not slept since the council meeting. "You all know why we are here," she began. "The council has revealed the truth about our history, about what humanity was before. They believe we are still dangerous. They believe we cannot change." A man in the back raised his hand. His name was Junho. He was a scientist who studied alien biology. His voice shook when he spoke. "Is it true? Were we really monsters?" Una hesitated. Tejo answered instead. "Our ancestors fought a war, a terrible war. They did things that cannot be forgiven. But that was thousands of years ago. We are not those people. We do not even remember being those people. They think we are," Gunho said. "They think our nature has not changed. That is why we have to prove them wrong." A woman pushed forward. Her name was Mina. She was a diplomat, like Una. But where Una was calm, Mina was furious. Her hands were clenched into fists. "Prove them wrong? They want to exterminate us. They want to destroy our entire species because of something we did not do." Her voice cracked. "How can we prove anything to people who have already decided we are guilty?" "We have to try," Tejo said. "Why should we?" Mina stepped closer. "Why should we bow and scrape and beg for their approval? Maybe our ancestors were right. Maybe the only way to survive in this galaxy is to fight." The room went silent. Everyone stared at Mina. Her words hung in the air like smoke. Una spoke carefully. "If we fight, we prove them right. We become exactly what they fear. And if we do nothing, if we let them judge us..." Mina's eyes were wild. "They will destroy us anyway. At least if we fight, we die on our feet." Tejo shook his head. "No, that is exactly what they expect. That is the trap." He looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as he could. "They are waiting for us to react with violence. They want us to attack. It will justify everything they believe about us." "So what do we do?" Junho asked. "What other choice do we have?" "We show them something they have never seen before," Tejo said. "We show them that human nature is not just about aggression. It is about control, creativity, adaptation. We can be dangerous, yes. But we can also choose when to be dangerous and when to be peaceful." Mina laughed bitterly. "Pretty words. How exactly do you plan to demonstrate that?" "The council has promised us one chance. A test, I do not know what it will be yet. But when it comes, I will show them who humans really are. And if you fail..." Tejo did not answer. He did not need to. Everyone in the room knew what failure meant. The meeting ended without resolution. Some people supported Tejo. Others agreed with Mina. Most were simply too scared to decide anything. They returned to their quarters and waited for news from the council. Tejo returned to his own room. He sat in the darkness thinking. He needed a plan. He needed to prepare. But how could he prepare for a test he did not understand? A soft knock came at his door. He opened it and found Oren standing in the corridor. The Mora scholar looked nervous. His gills fluttered rapidly. "May I enter?" Tejo stepped aside. Oren slipped into the room and closed the door behind him. "You should not be here," Tejo said. "If the council finds out you are helping me, I know the risks." Oren moved to the window and looked out at the stars. "I have spent my life studying history, learning about the past, and I have always believed that the galaxy made a mistake when it chose fear." "What do you mean?" Oren turned to face him. When your ancestors were defeated, the surviving species made a choice. They could have tried to understand humanity. They could have studied your nature, learned from it. Instead, they erased you. They buried the truth and built a civilization based on terror. The first restriction is not about safety. It is about control. It is about making sure no species ever challenges the order again. Taiho frowned. You are saying the whole Galactic Union is built on fear? Yes, and that fear has kept us stagnant for thousands of years. We have not evolved. We have not grown. We move slowly because we are afraid of moving fast. We avoid risks because we are afraid of failure. We have become a galaxy of cowards. Orin stepped closer. His dark eyes were intense. But not everyone agrees with this. There are younger species, newer voices. They are tired of the old ways. They want change. And when they saw your landing, Taiho, they saw something they had never seen before. They saw danger. No, they saw possibility. Orin placed a hand on Taiho's shoulder. You fly the way we used to dream of flying. Before the restrictions, before the fear, you remind us of what we lost. Taiho felt something stir in his chest. Hope. A small, fragile thing, but real. If I pass this test, he said slowly, if I show the council that humans can control their nature, what happens then? Then everything changes. Orin smiled for the first time. The first restriction will be questioned. Other species will start to remember. The galaxy will begin to wake up. And if I fail, Orin's smile faded. Then the fear wins, and humanity dies. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Orin reached into his robe and pulled out a small device. It was a data chip, similar to the one he had given Taiho before. This contained simulations, training programs. They were created by your ancestors during the war. The Council destroyed most of them, but I managed to find a few copies in forgotten archives. Taiho took the chip. What kind of training? Flight training. Combat training. The techniques your ancestors used to dominate the galaxy. Orin's gills fluttered. Use them to understand yourself. Learn what you are capable of. Then show the Council that capability and control are not opposites. Orin left as quietly as he had arrived. Taiho inserted the data chip into his terminal. Ancient files filled his screen. Training programs designed for a war that ended before history began. He chose the first one and entered the simulation. For the next 2 days, Taiho trained. He flew through virtual space at speeds that would have terrified any alien pilot. He dodged obstacles that appeared with no warning. He made decisions in fractions of seconds. He pushed himself harder than he had ever pushed before, and slowly he began to understand. His instincts were not random. They were not chaotic. They were precise. Every aggressive move had a purpose. Every risky decision was calculated. Human nature was not about mindless violence. It was about efficiency, adaptability, survival. The galaxy saw aggression and assumed it meant destruction. But aggression could also mean protection. Speed could mean rescue. Risk could mean hope. By the end of the second day, Taiho was exhausted. His body ached. His mind was foggy. But he was ready. The message from the Council arrived that night. The test would take place in one cycle. Taiho would pilot a shuttle through an obstacle course in open space. The entire station would watch. He read the message 3 times. Then he closed his terminal and went to sleep. Tomorrow, he would fly for his species. Tomorrow, he would show the galaxy what it meant to be human. The observation deck was crowded. Hundreds of aliens pressed against the massive windows, their eyes fixed on the darkness of space. Screens throughout the station displayed the same view. Every species on Harmony Station was watching. Every breath was held. In the docking bay, Taiho climbed into a small shuttle. It was a standard transport vessel. Nothing special. No weapons. No advanced systems. Just a simple ship that any pilot could fly. The Council wanted to prove a point. They wanted to show that human nature could not be contained by ordinary means. Yuna's voice crackled through his helmet. Taiho, can you hear me? I hear you. The course is 3 kilometers long. There are 200 obstacles. Moving targets. Closing walls. Gravity traps. The council designed it to be impossible. Impossible for who? Una paused. For anyone who flies like they do, Taiho smiled. He placed his hands on the controls. The shuttle hummed to life around him. Then it is a good thing I do not fly like them. The bay doors opened. Stars filled his vision. The cold beauty of space stretched before him like an infinite canvas. In the distance, he could see the obstacle course. It looked like a maze made of metal and light. Walls moved. Rings spun. Asteroids drifted in random patterns. Grand Arbiter Kess's voice echoed through the communication channel. Human Taiho, you will have 1 attempt. If your shuttle is destroyed or damaged beyond function, the test is failed. If you complete the course, the test is passed. Do you understand? I understand. Then you may begin. Taiho took a deep breath. He closed his eyes for one moment. He thought of Earth. He thought of his family. He thought of the 47 humans waiting behind him. He thought of every human who would ever be born. Then he opened his eyes and pushed the throttle forward. The shuttle shot forward. The force pressed him back into his seat. The first obstacles appeared within seconds. 2 walls closing together, a gap that was shrinking fast. Taiho did not slow down. He calculated the distance, the speed, the timing. He adjusted his angle by a fraction of a degree. The shuttle screamed through the gap with centimeters to spare. The walls slammed shut behind him. On the observation deck, the crowd gasped. Several aliens stepped back from the windows. They had never seen anything like this. The next section was a field of spinning rings. Each ring rotated at a different speed. Each ring moved in a different direction. Hitting any of them would destroy the shuttle. Taiho dove into the chaos. He rolled the shuttle left, then right, then upside down. He threaded through gaps that existed for only fractions of seconds. His hands moved without thought. His instincts took over. The shuttle danced through the rings like it was alive in the council viewing chamber. The 12 leaders watched in silence. The Kith representative gripped her seat. Her compound eyes could not track the shuttle's movements. It was too fast. Too unpredictable. This is not possible, she whispered. No species can fly like this. Kess said nothing. His small eyes were fixed on the screen. Taiho cleared the rings and entered the 3rd section. Asteroids. Dozens of them. Tumbling through space in random patterns. No clear path existed. Every route was blocked. Taiho accelerated. He flew toward the largest asteroid. At the last moment, he spun the shuttle around it, using its gravity to sling himself forward. He bounced from asteroid to asteroid, using each one to change his direction. It was like watching a stone skip across water. Impossible. Beautiful. The crowd on the observation deck was silent now, not from fear. From awe. Oren stood at the back of the deck. His gills fluttered with excitement. He watched Taiho fly and felt something he had not felt in years. Pride, not for himself. For the future. The 4th section was the worst. Gravity traps. Invisible fields that could crush a ship or send it spinning out of control. There was no way to see them. No way to predict them. Taiho entered the section at full speed. The first trap hit him. His shuttle lurched to the left. Alarms screamed. Warning lights flashed. Any other pilot would have stopped. Any other pilot would have tried to stabilize. Taiho pushed harder. He used the trap's pull to accelerate. He let it throw him toward the next trap. He bounced between invisible forces, using their power against them. He was not fighting the obstacles. He was working with them, turning threats into tools. In the council chamber, Kess leaned forward. His massive body shifted on his seat. For the first time in centuries, he felt something he did not expect. Doubt the final section appeared. A narrow tunnel that twisted and turned in impossible angles. The walls were lined with sensors. One touch, and the test would end. Taiho entered the tunnel. Without slowing down, he turned left, right, up, down. The tunnel curved back on itself. It spiraled. The shuttle's hull screamed with the stress of the maneuvers. But Tai-Ho did not waver. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. He saw the exit. A circle of light at the end of the darkness. He pushed the throttle to maximum. The shuttle burst out of the tunnel and into open space. The course was complete. Silence filled the station. Every alien, every human, every creature on Harmony Station stared at the screens. The shuttle floated in space, undamaged, unscratched, perfect. Then the sound began. It started as a low hum, a vibration in the air. It grew louder, stronger. Tai-Ho did not recognize it at first. It was applause, not from the humans, from the aliens. Young pilots and curious scientists and hopeful scholars, they were clapping, cheering, celebrating. Not everyone joined. Many of the older species remained silent. The Kith representative looked furious, but she was outnumbered. For the first time in thousands of years, the fear was cracking. Tai-Ho landed his shuttle in the docking bay. When he stepped off the ramp, Yuna was waiting for him. Her eyes were wet. She grabbed him and held him tight. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." Hours later, Tai-Ho stood before the council once more. But this time, the atmosphere was different. The hostility had faded. Something new had taken its place. Grand Arbiter Kess looked down at him. The ancient creature was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. "You fly as your ancestors did. That cannot be denied. The aggression, the speed, the instinct. It is in your blood." Tai-Ho met his gaze without flinching. "Yes, it is. But perhaps—" Kess paused. "Perhaps the meaning has changed. Your ancestors flew to destroy. You flew to survive. To prove. To protect." He turned to the other council members. "I call for a vote. Should the first restriction be amended to allow humans to fly according to their nature?" The vote was not unanimous. Several species voted against it. The Kith representative refused to participate at all. But the majority voted yes, for the first time in thousands of years. The first restriction was changed. Humans would be allowed to fly as humans. And more than that, human instructors would be permitted to teach any species that wished to learn. As Tai-Ho left the council chamber, Orin was waiting for him. The Mora scholar smiled softly. "You did not just save your species," he said. "You reminded the galaxy what it lost when it chose fear over growth." Tai-Ho shook his head. "I just flew a course. Anyone could have done it." "No." Orin's dark eyes were warm. "Only a human could have done it. That is exactly the point." 6 months passed. The galaxy was changing. Tai-Ho stood in a small training room on Harmony Station. Before him sat a class of students. A young Mora, 2 Kith cadets, a Velk engineer who wanted to try something new, and a dozen others from species across the Union. They were learning to fly. Not the old way. Not the slow, careful, fearful way that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. They were learning to fly like humans, fast, bold, alive. It was not easy. Most of them struggled. Their instincts fought against the lessons. Their fear held them back. But they kept trying. Day after day. Week after week. Because they had seen what was possible. They had watched Tai-Ho fly through an impossible course, and they wanted to feel that freedom for themselves. Yuna watched from the observation window above the training room. She smiled as Tai-Ho demonstrated a sharp turn. The students tried to copy him. Most of them failed, but they laughed at their failures. They encouraged each other. They kept going. The galaxy was waking up. It would take time. Generations, maybe. But the change had begun. Fear was loosening its grip. Hope was taking its place. And it had all started with a simple question. Why do aliens fly like that? Sometimes, the forbidden questions were the most important ones to ask.